During my senior year of high school, I traveled to visit my grandmother in Japan. When I was on the plane, the stewardess looked at me and said in perfect Japanese, "Anata ni karamasu?" And I respond, in perfect English, "Sorry, what?" Apparently, she was asking if I was going home, and when I had no idea what she was saying, she was just as surprised as I was. My struggles continued when we touched down in Tokyo. From failing so miserably at chopsticks, to not knowing that shorts in the springtime can be considered, well, trashy, I began to realize what I should have during that interaction on the plane. I have no idea what I'm doing. I share this story because it provides an example of the concept of cultural identity. Cultural identity is the feeling of belonging as it relates to one's national, ethnic, social class, religious, or any other group that has its own distinct culture. There are a lot of groups to choose from, and we all have more than one. According to cultural identity theory, there are specific, for the most part, involuntary characteristics that shape our identity on a very deep level. Among these are sex, race, ethnicity, and nationality. To explain my experience, I'll focus on the latter two, ethnicity and nationality. They are different, and they sometimes get blended together to create a misconception of someone. Ethnicity refers to a person's ancestry and heritage from a different place of residence. For me, this means being half Japanese from my mother's side and a blend of German and Welsh from my father's side. I'm proud of both my Asian and European heritage, and I'm thankful for the unique cultural experiences that I've been able to have. On the other hand, nationality is a place where a person is born and holds citizenship. I was born in the United States, specifically in Mount Auburn Hospital in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I then proceeded to grow up in the Back Bay area of Boston, a far plane ride away from Japan and Europe, with not to mention a very different culture. I share this because it illustrates an aspect of cultural identity. In her essay, Jane Collier states that although individuals may have a membership in national or ethnic groups, they may not all share the same intensity with which they enact those identities. In other words, we might be someone different than who our blood or birth certificates say. Rather than having our cultural identities defined by limited factors such as ethnicity, cultural identity theory says that we have multiple identities that are constituted through our communicative discourses with others. We simultaneously shape and have our identities shaped as we exist together in a social world. But if the first part were true, it would be expected that I'm well versed in all things Japanese culture. What are the A and BVDs of Japanese society? I shouldn't have been so caught off guard by the stewardess on the plane, or just the different norms of everyday life in Japan. But I was, and the reason goes back to my cultural identity and how I enact it. Collier also identifies two opposing forces within cultural identity theory. A vowel is how you see yourself. This is who I am as a member of my group. In contrast, ascription is what others see in you. This is how I see you as a member of your group. Competent intercultural communication occurs when the two line up, but often they don't. To demonstrate, try and think of one adjective that completely describes who you are. This might be difficult because it's hard to take every little aspect of ourselves and boil it down into one all-encompassing word. But although this is hard to do with ourselves, it's pretty easy to do with others. In fact, we do it all the time. My avowed perception of myself is based on nationality. I'm an American citizen. I grew up under individualistic ideology and American norms of what is right and wrong. All this influences how I see myself and how I act in turn, none of which has anything to do with my Japanese heritage. Of course, I'm proud of it, it just doesn't have much stake in defining me. However, in Japan, my ascribed identity was based on ethnicity. Therefore, I was expected to know and understand things I've never even experienced before. Yes, I'm Japanese by blood, but I don't speak the language, understand the mannerisms, and I don't care if shark is a delicacy. There's absolutely no way that I'm touching that. Although I'm discussing my personal example, dissonance between avowed and ascribed identity is the source of a lot of intercultural communication conflict. When we rely on our ascribed identity of others, we might jump to conclusions and see them as the other, or in my case, see someone as just like you when they're not. It's easy to emphasize ascribed identity when thinking about ethnicity. In the United States, it's especially common to do this with minority ethnic groups. While recognizing ethnic differences can be a positive thing because it encourages us to acknowledge diversity, it also provides a gateway to stereotypes, prejudice, and discrimination. Part of understanding cultural identity is realizing the numerous ways people identify with besides their ethnicity, or just that there are varying degrees to which their ethnicity shapes cultural identities. To some, it might be their everything. However, to me, it's just that, a thing. So what's the big idea anyway? Why be so concerned about other people's cultural identity? Well, in doing so, you exercise the part of your brain that seeks to understand, to empathize, and to realize that the way you see someone may only be the surface. Just like there's no one word to fully sum up with who you are, the same goes for other people. Well, how can we do this? I believe it's in the little things. Things like looking at the name tags of employees at Kroger or Starbucks, or people love to talk about themselves. When you meet someone, try asking about their life and see what you learn. Before long, you can train yourself to completely change the way you see the world. Like the controlled stage of prejudice, this takes effort. It involves taking the extra step to see someone in other ways beyond how we immediately perceive him or her. Because underneath the surface, everyone has a unique cultural identity that from a multitude of upbringings and memberships create a truly distinct individual. I hope I've conveyed the importance of recognizing cultural identity beyond just ethnicity. Lastly, I should like to impart this. You might not change the world, and that's okay. But if we each change ourselves just a little bit, the world of its own accord will change just fine.